All right, and we're back. First-time listeners, welcome back to the Chroncast. As always, my name is Ryan. I'm the host. With me is Alex Rickman and Zach Mason. Alex?
Hello. Hi, guys.
Zach?
Hello, everybody. I am Zach Mason. I am the producer of the podcast, and as usual, I am just here to make these two look like they know a lot more about hockey than they actually do.
And for that, we thank you.
All right. First thing we're going to talk about, Phil Kessel is currently hitting the ice with the Abbotsford Canucks, hopefully aiming to get back in shape and join the Canucks lineup by the end of season push and the playoffs. So my first question is, my first question is, what does everybody think about? Great start. What does everybody think about the move?
Odd, but not unexpected. We've heard the whispers that we've been interested in Kessel for a while now. You have to wonder how he fits the system, but with a guy like Tocchet who knows him pretty well, I do trust that it's something that's well thought out and not just a move they're making out of the blue.
I mean, he is a guy who played a bit under under Rutherford and Alvin as well in Pittsburgh. And I think he knows a lot of the guys in charge quite well. I also think adding forward depth that, both veteran leadership and scoring is important for the playoffs. Now with Dakota Joshua apparently being hurt, you never know when you're going to need an extra guy to fill in those, in that bottom six. And I think adding Kessel is perfect. It's assuming he can get back into shape and ideally produce the way that he would have last year in his cup run with Vegas. I think adding a piece like Kessel is really important for this team that's obviously no longer messing around, that wants to win a cup.
Yeah. Zach, any thoughts on this from you?
I mean, I guess it feels like it's almost a low risk, high reward in a way, because it's not like we're coming in expecting him to be the one guy or even the number two guy. He's just kind of there as maybe even just like a glorified coach in a way at some points.
Yeah, I see it sort of like as almost like a player manager. I know they have a lot of those in soccer. And I think with Kessel, obviously he's not one of our top weapons, and I don't think it would be reasonable for any team to expect him to be a top weapon. He did look pretty gassed in his first session back in Abbotsford. So I think it's good that they're having him work out in Abbotsford, probably sign him to professional tryout before signing him to a contract. And I think that the Canucks have taken probably the best approach that they can for a player who wants to be on a competing team, but also hasn't played the first 50 games of the season and is getting older, obviously, and needs to get back into shape.
Yeah, I'm kind of assuming and hoping that he'll be playing a few games as an Abbotsford Canuck before we're committed to him playing in Vancouver, but just signing him to, probably a league minimum contract, mainly being there for veteran leadership and some secondary scoring in the bottom six, I don't mind adding a guy like Kessel. He's got multiple rings, he knows how to get it done in the postseason, and he's clearly a guy that Tocchet trusts, and I'm a big believer in, with what Tocchet's done, if he wants a guy, go get him.
Yeah. I think that, obviously there's a very preliminary stage for this Kessel topic, so I think I've said all that I really need to say. I think we should probably move on. Both the power play has been kind of struggling lately, I've noticed. They've been having trouble getting on the board, and one of the names I find has been missing from the score sheet a lot during this drought is Elias Pettersson. So how do you guys feel about Pettersson's recent hot on and off streaks, and obviously the power play sort of fizzling out?
Yeah. What I've been finding with Pettersson for a while now, but this season in particular, the highs are incredibly high with him. When he's on his game, he's maybe even a top 5 player in the NHL. The lows, he just falls off the face of the earth. Right now we're in one of those areas where there's some games where you just don't even notice he's out there, which is really a problem when you're relying on him as your main scoring option, your number one forward. So I'm not worried long-term about him, but it is a little concerning to see the streakiness in his play come up repeatedly.
Yeah, I mean, he had been streaky like this before. Like it's something kind of similar happened last year where he started off really slow, but then again so did the entire team, and then he started to pick it up, and the team got a little bit progressively better. And I think that kind of reflects just like how the team plays. It kind of all goes through Pettersson. Like when he's off his game, it could be special teams, it could be 5-on-5. It could be just the overall team, just somewhere along the line. If he's not producing, the whole team is producing less.
Yeah.
And I think that's, honestly, this year, with how good the rest of the team has been playing, I don't mind having these off stretches for him, because it just means that the number on his contract is going to be lower. And
yeah.
As much as I would love to throw everything in the kitchen sink at him to get him to stay in Vancouver, I think that as long as the team is showing that they can score through these cold streaks, which they have, I mean, like they just beat Detroit 4-1 last night. I think if they can show that they can score without Pettersson, it gives them a little bit more leverage in contract negotiations.
Yeah, and you have to wonder at this point how much he's going to be getting. It's almost scary to think about what they're going to end up paying him no matter what, just because paying any player that much is going to take a toll on the rest of your cap structure. So the cold streaks this year, I do think will be taking that number down, but I wonder how far down it's going to go. And I wonder if there comes a point where you almost have to consider... I'm not saying that I want this, just to be clear. I wonder if there comes a point where if he wants a number that's unreasonable, they consider moving him.
I mean, I think that would take a lot, though. Like to consider moving
totally,
Pettersson, it would have to take like an unreasonable number that he's unwilling to budge from, that the Canucks are not even prepared to move assets out to keep him, and I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that he's obviously not yet, or at least not now, in the type of position where he can ask for $13 million a year like Austin Matthews and Nathan McKinnon have. And I think that alone kind of prevents him from getting that unreasonable number. Like, he's not realistically going to ask for that much money because he's not going to get it. I'm prepared to see the Canucks offer up to or around 10-11 million, because I think he's that important when he's on his game. But in order for him to be on his game, he has to be on his game. Like, he can't have a cold stretch like this in the playoffs. Like, there's no that. Yeah. That would be for the player that he is, and he's obviously no longer a rookie, or he is still young, but he's no longer a rookie. If he disappears in the playoffs, that's obviously a massive problem, and I think that would greatly affect his contract. So, in order for him to like stay in an area where the Canucks can afford him and his number is reasonable, he needs to, just keep doing what he's doing almost. But he can't disappear in the playoffs.
Yeah. And you saw in the bubble playoffs what he was capable of doing there. He really showed up in the big games there. But you have to wonder what it would be like in a postseason with fans in the building and the atmosphere changed around him, because at that point it feels like the pressure would be higher. I'm not saying he can't do it, but it could be different for certain guys.
I mean, yeah. Obviously, pressure changes things for just everybody, but at the same time, I think this is something that the group has wanted, and it's something that's going to excite them, and I think that they're going to be even more locked in than they are right now when they get that, at least at first, when they first get that opportunity to play playoff hockey, because they have guys running the team, and they have guys in the locker room that have been around good teams, that have won cups. Phil Kessel will hopefully add that too. They'll know how to manage the younger guys who haven't been in this scenario before. And I think having that sort of guiding leadership is something that would, separate them from, say, a team like Toronto that hasn't been able to succeed in the playoffs with their core. as their core gets progressively older and progressively more rattled every time they are out in the first 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
God, I love Leaf slander.
Must be especially nice for you as a Toronto resident, or former Toronto resident,
Toronto
I suppose.
resident. Yeah, soon to be again, but who's counting?
Because, sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were at Maple Leaf Square last year when they got knocked out, weren't you?
I was in the back of the crowd the moment that the Panthers knocked them out, and it was both one of the greatest moments of my life as a sports fan, but also one of the most terrifying, because it was like, if I let out a sound, someone is going to start an altercation. Like, there are 20,000, and keep in mind, we were coming from a Jays game, so there were like 40,000 people in Rogers Center that just and most of them, if not like probably around half of them, just walked straight to Maple Leaf Square to just like catch the end of the game. So there were like probably 20, 30, 40,000 people between that and Scotiabank Arena. So it was like, if I make a sound, someone's going to intervene. So I had to be silent. And my friends were Leafs fans, like they were devastated. And I was like, nope, let's go. We got to move. We got to get in an Uber and go.
Had to save it for when you get home.
Yeah. But yeah, what else do we have to talk about in the hockey world?
Should we talk about the game last night?
Jets, I'd rather talk about the game tomorrow night.
Yeah, let's do that.
The game tomorrow night's going to be spicy.
Canucks-Jets,
probably the best 2 Canadian teams in the league right now. Maybe 1 and 3 considering the Oilers and their recent tear. But what a game that's lining up to be.
Yeah, I mean, at one point this was, I believe, 1 and 2 in the West fairly recently, right?
Yeah, this is teams that were recently like flipped 1-2 in the league.
Yeah, I mean, this Jets have gone a little bit cold lately, but you still know how good of a team they can be. This should be a fantastic game.
Yeah, and it's a team that also Vancouver has sort of had not really like demons. Like, I don't want to quote like Sam Darnold, I'm seeing ghosts, but a team that's had Vancouver's number pretty much. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that, considering how the team has played against them in past years. It'll be interesting to see how they can play against them now with, I'm really hoping, is a raised level of confidence compared to past seasons where it was just kind of like, let's go to Winnipeg and lose 4-1, or let's go to Winnipeg and lose 4-0. It's going to be Winnipeg's coming here, let's set the tone, let's show them that if they match us in the playoffs, they're not going to have a fun time.
Yeah. And this Canucks team really feels different from a lot of those teams that have been getting beaten by the Jets in recent years, and a lot of new players from that too. We've had a lot of roster movement over those few years, so I don't think a lot of the team will be seeing the ghosts like they may have a few years ago. And I think that this team stylistically is so different too that I think we can look a lot better against them this time.
Yeah. I mean, we've said it so many times how this team feels and looks different, but that game against Boston, I mean, they are allowed to have bad games. By no means are they supposed to win every game. But when you lose 4-0 like that to a team that you're wanting to compete with for a Stanley Cup, in a game where they score 2 shorthanded goals and it doesn't really feel close at all the entire time, it does raise some eyebrows. So I'm interested to see how they'll respond after playing a few lesser opponents.
Yeah.
Not to say that Detroit is a bad team, because they're not.
No.
They're not the Bruins. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond when they're going up against another top 10, arguably top 5 team in the league, especially in prime time at home.
Yeah.
Do we have any other Canucks topics?
I know we did just skip over it, but I do think we need to talk about last night's win. What a way to start the homestand. What a way.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, I did not watch a lot of it. I had a midterm today. I had to study for that. But I did watch some highlights, and it looked like we were playing well. Did anything stick out that we don't normally do?
More than anything, I think Thatcher Demko stood out. There were some absolutely incredible plays from him, but I don't think there was a player on the ice who looked bad to me. Everyone looked good, and we were obviously, we lost the game to the Red Wings not long ago in overtime. They looked pissed off that they had lost that game, and they looked like they wanted to take it to the Wings.
Yeah. I'm glad they took it to the Wings because no one likes getting grittied on. Shout out Nikita Zadorov.
Love you, Z.
But yeah, I did watch. I know Lindholm had a pretty good game. Was it 2 goals last night?
2 goals, both really nice ones.
Yeah, Lindholm played well. Demko played well. It just felt like it. From what I saw, at least, it looked like a sound performance.
Really did.
And it's good that that's not really shocking anymore because it used to be. But
yeah,
again, it's almost cliche now how often we say this isn't like they're not like older past teams. Like, are we really that traumatized that we have to keep mentioning how different this is to like sort of reaffirm ourselves that we're actually watching a good hockey team?
Kind of, yes. It was that bad for so many years.
Yeah. It is. It's an exciting time, I guess.
Yeah.
But
and I mean, you can really feel the difference. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So I've been noticing, I've been to a good few games this year, and you can really feel the difference when you're there. The fans feel excited again. Shall we bring on our friend?
I think we should. All
right.
Speaking about the Red Wings game last night, we have someone who he wasn't on the ice, but he had a pretty important role in the Canucks victory last night, and a lot of the Canucks victories this season. I'm not quite sure he's actually been in attendance for a loss yet, but he's the Hart Trophy winner of Popcorn Hawkers, we'll call him. This is our friend Maayan Zilbershtein. He's a Rogers Arena employee and a member of the Canadian Soccer Source podcast, so go check that out when you get the chance. Maayan?
Hey guys, pleasure to be here on one of my favorite podcasts.
Aw.
That's rich.
I'm touched. I'm touched.
Yeah.
It's been a dream of mine for
many
ever since it
days.
started. Yeah.
Many hours.
Several
so
minutes.
Maayan,
Few
as far as I'm aware, you've really only been getting into the Canucks since you started working at Rogers Arena, correct?
Yeah, pretty much since like early November, like a couple of years ago, like during the bubble, I was invested because the team was pretty decent and everyone around me was watching it. But yeah, other than that, I mean, obviously the team's very good now, and I'm at games. The atmosphere is great every game because they keep on winning. It's hard.
What's your record when you're hawking popcorn?
I think it's 12-0 now.
Jesus.
Wow.
13. Yeah. No,
We're
great.
gonna need you at like every playoff game. Just
If
so
you have other
you gotta
commitments
talk-
during the playoffs, cancel them right away. You're at those games.
You gotta talk to my bosses about that, man, not me.
Put us in contact.
Put us in contact. I'll send them
I will,
a
for sure.
persuasive essay or something.
Sounds good.
So, Maayan, quick question about the game last night. I heard this on Twitter, but I need someone to verify this. Can you or can you not confirm that there were chants of "We want Kessel in the building"?
I can confirm there were.
There were.
We want Kessel. Mm-hmm.
Front office, you have heard the
Yeah.
people. We want Kessel.
Yeah, well, I mean, the front office also had to listen to us say chanting firebending for like 3, 4, 5 years before it actually happened.
Okay. But
they did listen, did they not?
Mm-hmm.
In the end, they listened.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So Maayan, I mean, you haven't really been there for the lows of Canucks hockey, but obviously, being there for the highs, like how does it feel as someone who's, I would say, new to hockey almost?
Yeah, I'm like fairly new to hockey. I went to one Canucks game in 2017, which was an overtime loss to the Islanders. Other than that, the only games I've been to are the ones I've worked at, and I haven't really watched many. It's been great. The atmosphere is amazing. People are invested. Almost every game's like fully sold out. I look around the arena whenever I'm walking through the seats to try and sell popcorn. and it's like there's barely any empty seats, and it's great to see because at least one of Vancouver's sports team is getting love. Um, well, you know what? The Lions too. The Lions too.
Yeah. Everyone loves the
Yeah.
Canadians around here.
Yeah, I used to work there too.
Of course.
With that
Should we
being,
talk about that other team?
there's a car
I'd
alarm
love to
going
talk
off
about the other
outside.
team.
Okay,
All right.
Let's talk about another. I'm gonna mute my mic for a second until this car alarm goes off. But yeah, Alex, you can take the lead.
All right, so for those of you unaware, Maayan is one of the biggest Whitecaps fans I have ever met. So, for those unaware, the Whitecaps also recently got knocked out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, I believe it's now called, correct, Maayan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you give a review of our performance over the two-leg tie against Mexican side Tigres?
So I went to the first leg. The first leg, first of all, was hosted in Langford at Starlight Stadium, which is home to Pacific FC from the Canadian Premier League. Went there with Ryan. I slept in his dorm
Which is located
on
at...
the floor. Yeah.
We don't talk
I'm
about
not doing
where
this
it's
again.
located.
Oh, yeah. We don't need to do that again.
Please.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the Caps' first competitive game since the game on November 5th, which I'm not going to talk about for certain reasons. Yeah, exactly, Alex. And I mean, the performance in the first leg especially was brilliant. Stats may not show it, but we outplayed Tigres, who are one of the best teams in North America. I think they're ranked number 3 in the continent. A lot of it has to do with the dimensions of the pitch and all sorts of other things, but overall it was a really inspiring performance. We got good chances, even though many of them didn't result in shots being taken, but I think that's mostly just rustiness. And that did carry over to the second leg. Oh, sorry, first of all, the first leg ended 1-1. We limited their chances as well, except for eventually Andre Pierre-Gignac, their striker, pulled off some magic with a free kick right in front of our section. And then, the second leg, just 2 days ago, it did end in a 3-0 win for Tigres, which was kind of expected, but the Caps came out strong, and in the first half, we were the better team, in my opinion. We were pressing. We could have scored 1 or 2 goals. There were some good chances for Matthias Laborda, for Damir Krylak, a bunch of others. And at the end of the day, you could just see why Tigres are ranked number 3 in the continent, because they got like 3 or 4 big chances and scored 3 goals in the game. And it was bound to happen, but overall, it was just a really, really inspiring performance from the Caps, and it's made me really look forward to the upcoming MLS season, which is in just about 2 weeks for the Caps.
The Whitecaps, I believe you mean.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Krylak and Laborda as 2 players who had good short scoring chances in the second leg. Any standout players for you over the course of either leg for good reasons or Alessandro Shop reasons?
Okay, well, yeah, that's the obvious one. Alexander Schuff. He just shouldn't play. Really, he's kind of like the new Russell Tybert, except there were higher expectations of him when he first came into the team. Because Tybert, no one's expected anything from him in the past 4 or 5 years at least. And
No, we've
Schuff,
expected
he
things.
came in. Okay,
I
what did
would
you
just like to say, with Tybert, I expect lots of turnovers and own goals.
We didn't
Well, yeah,
expect
but-
good things.
That's true.
Oh, okay.
But that's what
Well,
we
I
get
mean,
from Alexander
those
Schuff
are. I
now.
mean, those are good things if you're a Sounders fan or a TFC fan.
But we're not.
But we're not. We're not.
We're not. So yeah, Alessandro Schuff, he came in as a free agent after having played in the Bundesliga for a few years. And he really should have been that guy, and he's just not physically up to standard. He's too slow, he can't place his passes, just all sorts of things. And it's good that we have guys like Andres Cubas and Pedro Vite, who, when they're both healthy, should start over Schuff easily. And now, as for players who stood out on a positive note. Well, first of all, I mentioned Matias Laborda. I thought the first leg against Tigres was his best game for the Caps. Um, he was running forward with intensity. Anytime an attacker came up against him, he just took the ball off him with ease. He won duels in the air, on the ground, everything. And in the second leg, he had a very solid performance as well. And like I said, had 2 solid scoring chances. Another player that I really enjoyed watching, he didn't play too much. He came off the bench in both games, but Fafa Pico, one of our other new signings, he came off the bench and he did what he's done for years in MLS now, which is just run at defenders with intensity and just keep going like he's done for years. Like I said, I don't know. There isn't really much more that I can add, but he created solid chances and he did what he does best.
And I guess moving forward, what are you hoping for with the MLS season starting next weekend and the Cap season starting in 2 weekends because of the best tournament or the best sporting event that takes place at BC Place, HSBC Sevens taking place during MLS opening weekend?
Okay. Well, I'm expecting good things from the Caps this season. I've heard that there may be more signings coming, specifically for striker and right wing back depth. Nothing more than that, really. But
Mustafi, right?
Yeah.
Can he play right back? Mustafi?
okay, we're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm expecting big things from this team. I think in the Western Conference, it's wide open. I think there's only 1 or 2 teams that you can definitively say are better than the Caps, and those are the Seattle Sounders and LAFC. And other than that, it's all wide open, which is why I think we can finish second in the West. We can finish 7th in the West. We can finish lower than that. Because there's so many teams around us that have rosters similar to us where they're not exactly elite teams, but they're not bad teams by any means, and they're like slightly above average. It's just all super hard to predict, but I think we will finish in at least the top 4 in the West. At least we should. If we don't, I'm not going to say it's going to be a big disappointment because of how competitive it is and how, well, realistically, the Eastern Conference is a lot better than the West. So I wouldn't say because of how good the West is, but because of how similar a bunch of the teams are. I'm not going to be disappointed if we don't finish in the top 4, but I think it's ideal for us to do so.
So, Maayan, as you know, last episode we kicked off by apologizing to you because in our discussion about coaches with personality, we failed to mention Whitecaps manager Vanni Sartini. As you know, the Whitecaps are going to be starting the season without Vanni, who's out with 6-game suspension. What do you expect to see from, I believe, Mike D'Agostino running the team while he's gone? What do you expect to see during those 6 games?
He's basically just... We saw it in the game that he took over because Vanni was suspended for yellow card accumulation last year against the LA Galaxy. We won 4-2. He was basically just being used as Vanni's puppet. Like, realistically, it's the same tactics, it's the same everything. And, you know, I like Vanni. I know a lot of people don't. I understand that a lot of people don't. I don't. I'm not going to argue with you, even though I already have. Ryan's just giving me a lot of thumbs downs here right now. And that's fair.
Yeah, I mean,
I understand.
He's good in the way Ted Lasso is good.
Okay, but...
Ted Lasso doesn't know what the outside rule is, though.
No, he does now. He does now.
He's like if Mike McDaniel was Arthur Smith.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I'm not expecting much to change. I think the one thing we can expect is that there's going to be way less drama on the touchline because of the fact that we're missing someone like Vanni who just likes to yell at referees. And I mean,
yeah,
last season he got suspended for yellow card
like
accumulation, which I think...
Was it the first time a manager had ever been suspended for yellow card accumulation when he did that?
Can't
There's
see it being
a
the
good
first
chance.
time ever, but it's certainly not a common
Yeah.
occurrence.
Exactly. And that just shows you what Vanny's like, and
Yeah.
I love his character, but to an extent, I think it's obvious. It obviously hurts at times. Depends on how you look at it, because I mean, some people like the fact that we don't have him for our first 6 games of the season, not to mention any names. But yeah, realistically, I don't think that much changes. I think at most we'll just see less drama, like I said, because Mike D'Agostino, at least from what I've heard, isn't actually that good of a coach himself. So he's
I
just
mean,
gonna
you said
take
he was a
Vanny's
Vanny puppet,
habits.
so like,
Okay,
you
okay,
said yeah.
sure. Yeah, that's about it. I think Vanny's a good coach. We're gonna miss him, but at the same time, not that much is gonna change really.
And then, speaking of other coach with personality, I'm going to pivot to the Premier League. You and I are both Liverpool supporters. We're obviously
Yeah.
soon to be without our beloved coach with the personality. Anyone in mind for a replacement for Jurgen Klopp for you?
I mean, the top candidate has to be Xabi Alonso. He's doing amazing things with Bayer Leverkusen right now in Germany. They're still undefeated, which is crazy. Like about 20 games into the season. And he's a former Liverpool player. He knows this club. That's another important thing. Like he was part of that 2005 Champions League winning squad.
Of course.
That's the year I was born. I think it was like the game was about a month after I was born. And yeah, I mean, other than Xabi Alonso, I think the names that pop up for me are people like Julian Nagelsmann, who's had some good experience with Germany and Bayern and whatnot. Someone like De Zerbi from Brighton, who's done some great things with them over the course of these past 2 seasons. Yeah, it's gonna be tough without Klopp without Klopp here, and I think no matter who we bring in, the team's not gonna look better.
Yeah,
it's for sure, unless we go out and sign Kylian Mbappe now that he's definitely leaving PSG. But realistically, he's going to Real Madrid.
Probably. And I mean, we have a really good attack right now with guys like Salah, Nunez, Gakpo.
Yeah, Cody Gakpo. He's one of my favorite players for Liverpool. Yeah. I have a Cody Gakpo jersey. He reminds me of back in like the early 2010s when I first really got into watching Liverpool. Another Dutch player, another Dutch winger, really, Ryan Babel. He was great. He was great.
Future Whitecap.
You gotta love Babel.
Whitecap.
I wouldn't mind
I would just like to say, I don't know what you guys are on about with Real Madrid. He has said he wants to be the next Thierry Henry Mbappe.
Okay.
So, all right, Kate Abdo.
So, like, I'm just saying he wants to be the next Thierry Henry. And Kate Abdo.
Oh, so he's going to Barcelona then?
What?
Sorry, Ryan.
I mean, does anyone remember Thierry Henry for his time at Barcelona?
That's where he won a Champions League, is it not?
Quite a lot of people, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but he's going to...
Champions League winner with Barcelona.
You know what? I don't
Barcelona
remember
had Messi. They don't have Messi anymore.
I don't remember him for his time at Arsenal. I remember him for his time at the New York Red Bulls. Or at the time coaching Montreal Impact. That's all I remember, really, man.
I remember his time at
first, anything else second.
If I can pivot this back to a serious discussion for a second, the two Liverpool fans, is there anyone that, like anyone on the coaching staff that you think is being kind of groomed to just be a successor from the inside?
There was Pep Lingers, kind of, but it's been confirmed that when Klopp leaves, he's also going.
Yeah.
So unless something were to change, it's possible that something could change there, but I really doubt that you would end up seeing him take over as the manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know the the coaching staff that well.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than Pep, there isn't really anyone else that stands out. And he has coached before. I think there were some games where Klopp was out for certain reasons and he was on the touchline. And he did well with the team, and I like him a lot. But yeah, like
Yeah.
Alex said, he's most likely leaving unless something drastic changes. Yeah, it's gonna be tough without Klopp there. It always
It really is.
was gonna be by the time he left.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping it's Xabi Alonso really, and that's all I can think about now.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm Xabi Alonso though, do I want to go to Liverpool when I've already got an undefeated side at Bayer? I'm just playing, but you know, the Bayer Leverkusen are
The answer is
massive.
yes. I don't.
Yes,
I don't.
yes,
care.
Bayer
The answer is
Leverkusen
yes.
are massive. Are you sure you want to leave?
Yes.
Yes.
Very.
Mm-hmm.
But like
Yesterday.
you're not gonna win any trophies at Liverpool.
Why is the Arsenal fan talking? Like,
This is a hockey podcast. I'm just saying. All I'm saying is like, if I'm Xabi Alonso, I want to go and play for. I want to go and play. No, play for. I want to go and I want to manage. I want to manage a massive side like Vancouver Whitecaps FC.
there you go. Now you're talking.
Here's the one thing there. That's Jurgen Klopp's next job, so I don't know that Xabi's going to be able
That's
to take
true.
it.
No,
So, well,
see,
Klopp said
Jurgen
he's
Klopp
taking
is
a
going to
year
manage the national
off from
team until
coaching.
Don.
Well, Vanny
leaves.
finishes the year, then Klopp takes over for him.
I guess so. Yeah, because the
Yeah.
MLS schedule is different
Exactly.
European.
So he gets his time off, and he gets to manage the biggest
Yeah.
club in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least the biggest in the
Alright.
Metro Vancouver area.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think we should move on to the better football.
Okay.
Alex,
Okay.
Alex, do you have something to say about your favorite team, the San Francisco 49ers?
I am so happy they lost. I have never enjoyed a game of football that my team was not playing in so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'm in the same boat there.
I was kind of just in a boat of I hope both teams lose. But it's annoying, I guess, with like just everything wrong with like all the reasons why you wouldn't like the Chiefs. I'm not even as concerned with the fact that they're gonna become a dynasty. Because obviously I'm a Patriots fan. It would be hypocritical of me to criticize them for that and not like them for that. But it's just like there are just so many different reasons not to like the Chiefs. So it's really disappointing.
I mean,
But I guess as a Seahawks fan, it was fun for you.
oh, it was incredible. And I can tell my Rams fans are feeling the same right now. Had the Lions won the NFC, I do think I would have been cheering against the Chiefs. But the 49ers are my 32nd favorite NFL team. So no matter who was playing them, if they were in the Super Bowl, I was going to become a hardcore fan of whoever they were up against. So, Chiefs Kingdom, let's go.
And with that being said, do we have... I don't think that there's anything else to talk about except for the Zach Mason Combat Sports Corner.
Ladies and gentlemen, our newest segment. Zach, would you like to just
what
give
I've
a
been
rough
waiting for.
rundown? Would you like to give a rundown of what this segment is going to look like going forward before you get into it?
So I don't really have too much of a plan for formatting, but basically I really enjoy watching people bleed, so I have taken the opportunity to get the chance to talk about it on a podcast.
Very good.
Understandable.
And what shall we be talking about today, Mr. Zach?
I have two things I would like to talk about. The first, I will try and keep very short, but it did make my blood boil a little bit, is the Ring magazine is often called the Bible of Boxing. They release a pound-for-pound list, which is basically just the 10 best fighters in the world. Two people on it were very much getting on my nerves as to why they were there. Alex, would you like to introduce the list of them?
All
And
right.
this number...
Do you want me to give the whole list or just the two that made your blood boil? Because I know which two they are.
Just give the two that made my blood boil, I suppose, because they're...
At number
Oh, wait.
8 on the list, there is Errol Spence, and at number 9, there is Gervonta Tank Davis.
Yeah, this is just... Tank Davis especially, I am very low on, I suppose.
Okay.
He has this weird... He's found this weird middle ground where he's supposed to be this big money fight but he has done absolutely nothing, and I'm not actually convinced makes that much money. People always talk about him as this big pay-per-view star, but his biggest fight that he himself has marketed has done less than 200,000 pay-per-view buys. Also, he is a 30-year-old, basically contender, and I can't imagine that there is much less than about 5 people I'd rather have on the list than him.
And let's move on to Mr. Spence.
He's just... The problem is that he's so inactive, it's hard to justify putting him on a list, especially in such a sport that's what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
Like, his last fight was in July of last year. His last win is in April of 2022.
Good
and
Lord.
he does not have a fight booked in sight. So on a list where you have people who... Like, some people will have fought 3-4 times in the same amount of time. You have him on the list, despite the fact that he got... Genuinely could be a career-altering beating in his last fight from Terence Crawford.
Yeah.
And also his last win before that, he looked a bit shaky, and also it was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I really have to... Oh.
Anything else on the list you'd like to touch on?
Not really. I guess just those two really irked me because they're both almost... The biggest issues in boxing are the lack of quality people fighting each other and the total amount of inactivity. Like, if you look at that whole list, I don't believe anybody on it has fought more than twice in the last year. Which is the biggest issue in boxing, where since, as I said, it's such a sport where it's what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
If you haven't done anything lately, why should we care?
Yeah, fair enough. And I believe you had one more thing you want to talk about in this segment?
Yes, I wanted to. So we're recording this on Friday, February 16th. The next day, the 17th, is UFC 298. I wanted to talk about the main event there because I thought it would be a very intriguing matchup to talk about. So the main event is UFC featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski. He is defending his title for the 5th time against 14-0 Ilia Topuria. I find this very interesting because... Well, there's 2 reasons. One is that I find Topuria is very intriguing to watch because he's a very well-rounded fighter, surprisingly, because he is very, very good boxing, and he's shown that very much against, like, especially in his UFC career, against Josh Emmett, Bryce Mitchell, and a lot of the other guys he's fought. But also he is very well-credentialed on the ground because he's Georgian, and him and his brother are the first 2 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts to have come out of Georgia. And as well as he has been training in Greco-Roman wrestling since he was I think he was 7 years old he started that. And he could very well be in the perfect position to beat Alexander Volkanovski just because of what happened in his last fight. So for those who don't know, his last fight was in October of last year, and he was knocked out by the lightweight champion Islam Makhachev. And there's always been, in boxing and MMA, there is very much a belief, and it's been backed up quite well, that once a fighter is knocked out, they're very rarely ever the same. If you want to look at MMA, even just dominant champions, Chuck Liddell and Anderson Silva are probably the first 2 that come to mind. Chuck Liddell, he was on a 7-fight knockout streak with 4 title defenses. Gets, I believe, knocked out by Rampage Jackson, and for the rest of his career, I believe he goes 1-5. All 5 losses were by KO or TKO. And Anderson Silva gets knocked out by Chris Weidman in their fight. I don't believe the only wins he had were a decision over Nate Diaz, which was overturned due to performance-enhancing drugs, and a controversial decision win over Jared Cannonier, and that was in about 10 years after his knockout loss. So it's going to be very intriguing to see how Volkanovski does, because he's a very well-rounded fighter. I have in my notes that I have him as a jack of all trades, but master as none, because he can survive. Like, he survived very well on the ground against Makhachev in their first fight. He did very well in the stand-up against Max Holloway, who's probably one of the best boxers in the UFC. So he's very able to survive everywhere. But that big question, especially against a guy like Topuria, who very much has some power, is going to be intriguing to see, especially since he's the age of 35.
Maayan and Ryan, I would just like to ask, did you guys get any of that?
I heard it. It didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't really resonate
Yeah.
with me. I mean, my friends from high school are all UFC fans. So I kind of just like, I've watched fights before, but at the same time, they have no meaning to me. This is how I felt when Tobin talked about soccer in like 2018, 2019, before I got into it and started watching it. It's the same feeling.
For those of you who don't know,
as
Tobin
Zach,
is a friend of ours and Maayan's co-host on the Canadian Soccer Source podcast.
Which you should definitely go and check out, by the way.
Meh.
Okay. Wow.
No, it's a good show.
I
Check
gave
it out.
praise to you guys. Yeah. No, I was
Thank
gonna
you for
say,
coming,
as soon
Maayan.
as Zach mentioned, thank you. Wow. I was gonna say, as soon as Zach mentioned Anderson Silva, all I could think about was the Nike Winner Stays On ad from like early 2010s, because there's one like 2-second clip where someone transforms into Anderson Silva. Thanks, guys. That's all.
Okay.
Anything else anybody wanted to bring up here, or should we wrap this up?
I mean, I feel like
I
it's
think
a
we
weekly
missed
thing,
out
but
on
I
the-
want Maayan's opinion on this. This is probably the last thing we have to talk about.
Sure.
But Maayan probably spends the most time in Rogers Arena here. He probably watches the most in-person Canucks hockey out of any of us. So you have to ask him, Maayan, how much baby oil has Rick Tocchet been using on his head lately?
Quite a lot from what I've seen. It's been extra shiny.
It's
as of
sparkling
late.
from the upper
Yeah.
bowl.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I usually work in the upper bowl. I just like it. I get to see everything better. Yeah, Rick Tocchet is one shiny man. And
Yeah.
I think we missed out on the biggest news of the day, though.
Did we?
Which is the Whitecaps' new kit drop.
Oh, I forgot about that.
'cause-
Yes.
Obviously, so many people care about that.
Yeah.
No, but it is
I mean,
a really
they-
nice
they're
kit.
No, it
gonna
is.
look-
It is actually pretty decent Whitecaps news. We talked Whitecaps for a good few minutes. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. I personally love it. I mean, I don't appreciate the prices too much, but
Oh my
that's
God.
not really a thing that the club controls.
We hate Fanatics. If you don't
Oh my
hate
God.
Fanatics, there's something wrong with you.
If you don't hate Fanatics, stop listening to this show.
Yeah, we
Well,
don't
no,
need, we
you
don't
want
need
more
No,
your
keep
money.
listening. We need the numbers. Come
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really nice kit. It's, dark blue with the gold, and it's got like a throwback to the old NASL days from the good old days of 1974, where I was obviously alive and well. Yeah, I mean, it's got, the old badge. There's a lot of nice little details added, and it just looks like a very nice kit.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
mean,
not a hoop.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
nice.
it's not a
That's
hoop.
refreshing.
That's-
Yeah.
Refreshing.
refreshing. It's not a hoop. I think it's quite nice. They're gonna draw a lot of 0-0 games in it with me in attendance because I don't think I've mentioned this on the podcast, but I went to 5 or 6 Whitecaps MLS games last year, and not one goal was scored for the Whitecaps
For the
in any of
Whitecaps.
them. They were
Even
all
away
either-
from home.
Yeah. Well, the only game where they scored with me in attendance was the York United game in the Canadian Championship, and I was like one of 2 Whitecaps fans that wasn't related to a player. So maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe the problem is all of you guys. Maybe
Well,
I need to be
well,
the
he's
only
got a
person
point
in
here.
the South Side. Maybe I need to be the only person in the South Side for all of the games.
Yeah, but then we're... Oh, okay.
Well, he's got a point here.
Damn. I mean, I would be saving money. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could almost
York
afford one of the
United
kits
away
with the
end.
money you saved.
Mm-hmm.
The
Exactly.
Whitecaps have outscored opponents 4-1 when there are 3 people in their supporter section,
Okay.
and one of them is me. All right, I think that covers everything. I
Yeah.
don't know how you made it here if you've stayed here this long.
Incredible
I
job.
do it every week.
If you
Or not every
if you
week,
did if
Every
you
2
did
weeks.
genuinely hats off to those to whoever it is that somehow managed to get to the end of this episode. Thank
Thanks,
you all for
Mom.
listening. Yeah, my parents don't know about this, but thank you all for listening, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.